So you miss the good old days when you were responsible over nobody and you were responsible for nothing. You could play video games whenever you wanted. You were with your childhood friends. You can go to clubs whenever you want. Sports clubs, that is. And I mean, doing whatever it is that a kid does. And now you have high school exams to worry about, university exams, certain relationship problems. You have the kids are waking you up in the middle of the night, your wife's complaining too much. And honestly, yeah, fatherhood has been tough. And it's very understandable when you phrase it that way, why a person would want to go back to that perfect childhood of theirs. But I can confidently say, with no hesitation, that I do not miss the good old days. Now, the first thought that could come in your head is that, okay, so you just had like a really bad childhood or you had some trauma and you don't want to go back to it. Well, that's far from the truth because I have had the most perfect childhood. I cannot ask more from my parents. Alhamdulillah. I'm so grateful. And there is nothing I would change about my childhood. But not missing it is me referring to I would not want to go back. I do not prefer that time over the time and the present which I'm living in right now. And I really believe strongly that if you are constantly reminiscing and fantasizing and looking back in nostalgia, wanting to just build a time machine and go back to that past of yours, I really think that that shows a problem or an emptiness inside of you. And I want to address that in this video. And I just realized saying good old days is becoming a mouthful, so let's just call it like God. Hold up, what? No. If you want to go back in time, then I believe it is one of two issues. It is an extreme lack of purpose and a lack of a growth mindset, and they are both extremely related. Let's establish a rule in life. If you are alive and time is passing, then you are gaining more experience and you are going through more trial and error. And if through these experiences and trials and errors, you are not becoming a better person, then you are doing something extremely wrong. And better person is referring to becoming more mature, more tied to your purpose. You're becoming more ethical and you stand your ground when it comes to your morals. You're doing what's right for your sake, for your family, and whoever else that you love in your life. But obviously, these things are hard. You have to go through experiences where you get humiliated, embarrassed, you're in pain, and that's why we go back and think about these amazing memories we had as a kid. But if you look at the bigger picture, when you say that you want to go back to that time, you are also saying, in a sense, that your happiness or your contentment lies with being able to play video games all day or being able to just, be pampered and given whatever you want whenever you want it. Obviously, if I did all of the things I did as a kid right now, that would be extremely unproductive of me and quite literally childish of me. But also, I was a kid, so it's completely normal. I'm not gonna go to a kid and be like, "Hey, you dummy, why didn't you cure cancer and save the world and be a good citizen and stop crying?" Like, they are kids. But that is a phase in their life, and that phase has ended, and it's time to move on to something else. Now, one of the goals in this video is to make you realize that this moving on, whether it's from childhood to a teenager or a teenager to an adult, this moving on is not depressing, and it's you who's really making it seem depressing. Because now, as you're growing, you're blessed with this mind which is becoming more mature over time, and you can finally control to a certain extent with what you have accessible to you in your life, the trajectory in your life, what kind of person you want to be. Now, I can already see some comments like, "Man, you are clearly living an extremely fortunate life," and like to you guys, all I can say, first of all, Alhamdulillah, and secondly, you need to understand that a person's life on video is not representing their real life. And there's more to just financial status when it comes to problems. But, anyways, and going back to the growth mindset, I am now working on my physical health, my mental health, my spiritual health. You know, whether it's through working out, reading, studying independently by choice outside of university. And these things are what truly are making me approach a version of myself that I can be proud of, including making videos on this channel, something where I am creating and it's more of a true contentment that is deserving of feeling content, not some form of temporary pleasure which belongs to a kid in their entire childhood. But now I want to mention something which is more important than all of that. Imagine your health is on a decline, your finances is on a decline, and the effort you're putting in life is not actually giving you results in terms of where you want to be. Why is it still better than going back to a time where you had health and you had finance? And this is something which I can only answer through an Islamic perspective. Because when I mentioned that as time passes and you're gaining more experience, you are becoming a better person, this better person should always be referred back to Allah. He is the one who decides the criteria for what it means to be good and what it means to be bad in terms of what really matters, not the money, not your social status. As you move on in life, you want to ideally gain knowledge and be more tied to your purpose, gaining more guidance, you're gaining more knowledge, and through experience, you learn the wisdom behind all of the things that Allah has mentioned in the Quran and in the Sunnah, what is haram and what is halal. And when you really understand that and experience this, how can you possibly want to go back to a time in the past where you were so immature, so degenerate, a time where you were in a dark hole of sinning? You look at the Sahaba and you look at the Prophets when they sacrificed their ideal, perfect worldly lives where they had so much money and they had status, but they gave all of that just so they could find true purpose, which is filling that emptiness inside of them that cannot be filled elsewhere. And that is only with true purpose, following Allah. Otherwise, if you don't have this, then you are always going to want to go back to that time. And that is something which you are never going to accomplish because it requires you to live in such perfect conditions, such comfortable conditions where nothing is bothering you. And that's just impossible when you become a teenager and then an adult and then what's after an adult? I don't. And I want you to ask anyone with a growth mindset that is seeking to be 1% better every day and they have this, ideal version of themselves which they are approaching. They are not going to want to go back to any time in the past. They're going to want to keep pushing forward. Now, it's obviously normal to wish that you had, the health you had in the past, to wish that you had more money than you did. But in the same time, if you were given the option to go back to that time, then that also includes going back to that time with the mind and experience you had at that time. And that is something that is priceless. You can't give up the experience and info which you have in your brain just for something which is physical, something which comes and goes in life. A big part of becoming more mature is becoming more aware. But you see, the awareness is something that can go in a good direction and it can go in a bad direction. A lot of people take their awareness into insecurity by making them more aware of these tiny details about how they look in front of people, and they choose to focus on covering these with, I don't know, makeup or baggy clothes or whatever, than actually working on using that maturity to take action and improve your life. You're gonna have these highs in life and you're gonna have lows, some which you can control to an extent, some which you can't control. And really just using what is accessible around you in your life, use that and become as better as you can be every day, even if it's, an atom's worth of growth. Just whatever you can, do that thing. Otherwise, you are a adult mind trapped in a child's body. And like That is just sad to see when someone has the tools, and the main tool here is the mind and the body, and you are not fulfilling it to its potential. Like, that honestly really hurts to see. When you have, normal days in life or good days in life, which is something to be extremely grateful for, you as an teenager or even, an adult, whatever age where you become more mature, it is a beautiful thing to be able to appreciate, the smaller things which as a kid you could have never appreciated. I just sometimes want to travel again to the same countries I've went to as a kid, because even if I remember everything, now it's just different in terms of actually appreciating the history and the culture. So, yeah, do not take it in a depressing way, Moving on is really an amazing thing. I want to quickly mention that I have a new Instagram and TikTok where I'm going to be uploading shorts. So, yeah, please follow them so I can actually be encouraged to make even better and more videos on there. And inshallah, I'll see you guys in another video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.